I think we're live. Are we live? We are live, Luke. And we got guests here today.
We do. We're excited. This is the fourth shift Mind Body Badge, and today is I just want to call it a retirement episode. So folks, do make it at least tier 1 folks. Make it
tier 1. Us and tier 2.
And they live to tell about it. So we've got a couple of our favorite retirees. Both were involved in staff wellness towards the end of their careers, so we brought them back to kind of see what they're doing, tell us about some of those areas of wellness. So to my left, we have who's usually known as Chico, Rob Miller, and to my right,
Steve Hillwater. Howie. We call him Howie.
So you know they're good people when they have nicknames, right?
Yeah.
Like so we have to think about what are their real names? Because we just call them Chico and Howie.
Chico and Howie. That's how they're going to be on the bottom of this episode.
Yes.
Chico and Howie.
Sounds like a good show in itself.
Yeah,
thank you.
The Chico and Howie show. It would be like a 70s cop show.
Yeah.
That could have been a 70s like prison drama.
We could go
Running into the cell house, busting them up, like
Absolutely.
with fire extinguishers.
Like Hardcastle in the corner.
Exactly.
So we wanted to bring you guys on the show, not just talk retirement, but also talk about what you guys have been up to and that switch from working your entire lives to now, what do I do? Right?
Yeah.
And then that, I feel like that transition in itself is going to be tough.
So let's start maybe at the beginning, and then kind of tell us where you started, kind of the jobs you had, anything you think that's important in your story, and then we'll go to like the transition. What do you do now, and how did you bridge that?
Yeah. So who wants to go first?
Chico. I kind of miss that nickname. I really do, because I only heard it from people from corrections, and my athletic career would call me Chico, but now it's Rob or Dad, or my wife calls me Hun sometimes.
Other four.
Right, I won't get into that. We'll keep it clean here. But I hired in Bandea in 1996, May 13th was hiring day. I was 26 years old. I was on my first wife at that time. I had one kid, and then one was born about a year into the corrections, I believe. Now I retired 2021 of July, so I lived a bit over 25 years.
Right in the middle of COVID.
Right in the middle.
So that's something different too that most people don't experience.
That affected a lot of people. And at that time, I promoted in 2015 into I was in clothing room, so I was in not maintenance, but what do they call that? Supply. Thank you. I couldn't find a word. Promoted into supply, which was fantastic. It really was a good way to finish out my career. And then I retired, had my kids for the month of July, then I went back to school, and then I was lost. I was like, what in the world am I doing? Because I basically had all day by myself, and the foundation for 25 plus years was going to Bandea, going to work. It was something constant that I could count on. That was a rock, a foundation. And I had some issues and some troubles that if people heard me talk will understand kind of the things that I went through, which I'm sure a lot of people do. But when I finally pulled my head out of my butt, that was my foundation that I built on. And I didn't really realize that until it was taken away from me. I'm like, whoa, man, what's going on here?
How important do you think that routine for you, the 6 to 2, 7 to 3, 8 to 4, or 3 to 11?
Personally, it was paramount. It was at the top of the list, absolutely, because that was something that a constant that I could count on. That wasn't something that was going to get yanked away from me. And I could build upon that, hey, I'm disciplined in this area of my life. I get my butt to work on a daily basis. Put down the booze, put down the running around. You got a job to do, you got a family at home, pull your hand out of your butt and take care of it. And that, going to work on, I think it was 7:30 to 3:30, the shift I had, was absolutely the top of the list of what built me back up. and made me see what I needed to do. Discipline in that area also goes to discipline in other areas of your life. Not calling in all the time, not taking days off for no reason. Hey, this is my gig, this is my job. Let's get it together now. And then once I retired, you think, oh man, this is going to be great, because that's what we look forward to.
It's a finish line.
It's a finish line, but what's after that finish line?
Well, it's no more running.
Okay, but what's after that? You go 18, okay, I'm legal, I can vote, yada yada. 21, I can drink. Probably sometime
25, your insurance goes down a little bit.
Exactly. So there's all these milestones in life, but once you hit retirement,
yeah, and after you hit like 30 and 40, those aren't great milestones. So
right.
You've got retirement. So
you got retirement. Then you think, Howie, what do you think after retirement? I mean, you think, what's next? You're gonna die. I mean, that's what was in my head. That was
milestone.
And if you're lucky, you might get a little travel in between retirement and death.
And I'm not saying that, okay, you're going to retire now, bam, you're dead. But you've got to find something after that retirement. What's your why? What's my why? I was going to work.
That purpose or that meaning, it was kind of prescribed to you from 26 to 50, right?
Bingo.
And then after that, you're out of the class. You're left to find those answers on your own.
You're left alone. And a lot of us don't spend time by ourselves. We spend more time with the phone than we do ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's a scary thought in today's world. That's a little bit deeper thought. But yeah, retirement initially for me was very difficult. I found there was a lot of emotions going on that I had to deal with, and I had a good, close-knit family. My wife was there, recognizing what I was going through. So I had a good support system, but I also had to depend and rely upon myself. Say, hey, let's get it together now.
And the Chico of his 50s, and not to put him out on a ledge here, but I know he's come and spoke at other staff wellness things throughout the years. Been wildly popular, I think, because of the transparency, the openness, the honesty of his struggles. So not my job to air those out, but certainly you've been very transparent in hopes that you'll help anyone else. But I'm guessing maybe the Chico in his 50s is a little different than the Chico in his 20s or 30s, and not only building that support network, but feeling more comfortable using it.
Absolutely. That's a very good point. And where I had to look for that was within, and then have a circle of trust, a circle of people that I depended upon and relied upon, and that I knew would be there. That we're in it for the Chico's paycheck. We're in it for Chico's retirement. My mom, fantastic. So she retired from corrections.
Oh, really?
She was a teacher down at Pinckneyville. Okay. And just having that support group, people close to you that you can rely upon when you hit a little bump in the road, and it's necessary. And I stress to all people, if you are in corrections especially, if you're approaching retirement, think about it. Deal with it a little bit. Don't be afraid to go see a therapist, a psychotherapist. Don't be afraid to go talk to your local psych at your prison. If you're dealing with some issues and some things, don't wait till you're out there by yourself and alone. See, if you don't have a support group, don't be afraid. Before you walk out that gate, everybody slaps you on the butt and says, good job for your 25, 30 years, and douses you with water. And then the next day you wake up and you're like, what in the world am I supposed to do now?
Yeah.
Sit in my underwear and watch reruns of Benny Hill?
That's not bad for a while.
No.
We've talked about that in some other episodes as well, is just that stigma of corrections. You just said it right there. Before we retire, reach out to the support system and the resources available. But we have always, I've only been in it for 7 years, right? I know you guys have been 25 plus years. That older stigma of saying, I need help, I'm worried, I'm scared, I'm getting ready to retire, I want to retire, I'm getting ready to the new chapter in my life, I have no idea what I'm going to do next. How can I stop running? We talked about that earlier. How can we stop running to not walking once we hit that finish line? It's one of those things that breaking that stigma of saying I need to talk and I need help is so hard in corrections.
It is, because there's a tough guy, tough woman mentality that basically you do initially have to develop a little bit of that to protect yourself until you get wise to what's going on in the system. But down the line, and it cost me my first marriage, just basically being a meathead and not realizing, hey, I can open up to other people and not be afraid. I can go to a family reunion and not sit with my back against the wall.
Yeah.
Becoming conscious and becoming aware of what's going on and understanding when you need to share some things. Communication is so important. And a lot of us in corrections, and Howie, I bet you can attest to this, we shut down. We get home from work, and you know what? Honey, I don't want to talk about it. You don't want to talk
I
about
know that's. I just taught a class recently and checked in with a lot of the men and women there. You know, we had a slide or two on staff wellness. And obviously, being a staff wellness, I thought it was time to preach and checked in with those folks. And some of them had that support, a good balance of support inside and outside of the facilities, family, closer circles, healthy habits. And some also said, I don't need it. I can't force someone to do it, but. And I also understand that a lot of our prisons are in rural areas. A lot of people drive more than an hour one way, have other jobs, their kids are in a million activities. It's hard as an adult to be social and build up those supports too, but I think, yours is a story of success that you got those things in place. And then you had the maturity to kind of know yourself, hey, this is a time where I need to rely on those.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Howie,
your turn.
Your turn, you're up.
So what
Follow
do you
that.
know?
Take us through, when you came in, your time at the academy, what positions you had.
Okay. So I hired in June 12th, 1989 for elementary. I was 18 years old, and my initial
I don't even know
thoughts.
if he was born yet.
Yeah, probably
I was
not.
born in '88.
Probably not. So
He was still in diapers.
yeah, you're old when you work for corrections longer than a lot of the employees that have been alive. But anyway, I hired in as an 18-year-old kid. I was going to use it as a stepping stone because I always wanted to be a cop. But after I was there for just a few years, the money got to be so good. If I'd left, I'd have taken a pay cut.
Yeah.
So I stuck around. Got promoted to sergeant in 2000. Took a counselor gig in 2016. I was getting to the point where I figured out I was really too old to be chasing crooks. And I just wanted to kind of relax a little bit after 26 years in security. And right about the same time, I took the counselor job is when staff wellness came along. And when I first heard about that, I was the local president at the time, and I thought, here we go again, another silly DOC program that'll be a flash in the pan and be gone in a couple months, and I didn't give it a second thought.
Something that looks good.
Yeah. But I had a couple people at the facility say, hey, you know what, you ought to put in for that. So I did. Interviewed, got put on the team. I served as the facility coordinator for Illinois River for about a year. And then in September of 18, I think it was, they put me in charge of the northern region. And I felt like I was drinking out of a fire hydrant in that spot because dealing with Dixon, Pontiac, Stateville, the north was a mess incident-wise. My first week in the coordinator gig, I had 2 staff suicides at 2 different facilities.
Cool.
So that kept me pretty busy. But I think, I did a short stint in training when I was still an officer, and I was a FRIT for 19 years, and I really enjoyed that. But getting into the staff wellness part of it, I think that's the first time I really felt like I was doing something that made a difference. And for me, the hardest part of retiring was leaving the team because I met some totally awesome people. That team in the northern region, obviously I knew them the best, but I would put them up against anybody in the country for doing what we were doing. Those people were awesome, and they made my job a heck of a lot easier than what it probably should have been. Once I retired, after 31 years, been looking forward to it for so long. I remember my last day when it was time for me to finally go at whatever it was, 10 o'clock in the morning, after they gave me my retirement badge and all that. I shed some tears on the way out because I was so tight with the people that I'd worked with for so many years, and whether it was people at the facility or people on the team, the thought hit me, you know what, I may not ever see some of these people again. And I've tried to stay in touch with a lot of them since I've been out. I don't want to be a pest, but I try to holler at them just to see how they're doing. As for what I've been doing since I've been retired, my wife and I bought the 6-acre farm that had been in my family since 1888. We bought that back in 2018. My mom lived there for 5 years after my dad died by herself, so there was a lot of stuff that needed to be done.
Disrepair.
Yep. So I've been working on that ever since. I'm still not done. As far as the farm goes, we've got 5 cows, a miniature donkey, 40-some chickens.
That's awesome.
Hey, they're expensive
That should be our new logo. We gotta get a picture of the miniature, like Howie riding the miniature.
We could probably do that.
You don't have to pay for eggs.
Yeah.
See the price tag.
Yes, I have.
$4.
But
for eggs.
between doing the farm thing, we're also babysitting our 2-year-old grandson 4 days a week minimum, which is good. And I've been on the fire department for 25 years, and I'm the assistant chief now, so that still keeps me busy, keeps me connected to people. And you're talking about relationships. Even though I'm out and I've been out for 2 years, I'm still more comfortable talking to corrections people or fire department people or cops than anybody else out there.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
You speak to that.
Yeah. You just have that in common that you almost feel naturally. It's like kind of weird to say. It's like an energy. You know, you can talk to that person, they're going to get where you're coming from.
Yep.
Where if you're talking to a layman or somebody that maybe worked at a factory for 30 years, they're just not going to get that, the it factor.
And the questions that I get asked by people that aren't corrections people, if I answer them honestly, a lot of times they look at me like I got 6 heads. But if I'm talking to you guys about that stuff,
Yeah.
you guys all get it. So it's, yeah.
Exactly.
So there is something about that, like you said, that energy to put out. I mean, I'm not a veteran. I've done nothing heroic in my life that I can remember, but I do some work on the outside with veterans. I think I've talked about it before. Just something different than corrections, keep up the skills. But a lot of those guys will say the same thing. Like, well, you're not a veteran, but, you know, what were you or what are you? Because you seem to kind of get it. And it's something about, like, the paramilitary structure, the stress, the being arm's length from danger at all times, the bureaucracy.
Hyper-vigilance that you develop. I mean, you drop a corrections employee at the baseball game in St. Louis, and I guarantee
you can pick him out.
Yeah.
He's home.
And you know, if you went up and talked to him at the hot dog stand or the beer stand, he's going to be telling you what's going on around him. Hey, this guy down here is getting a little jacked up. I'm keeping an eye on him. You know what I mean? These people over here are completely safe, and they're just calm watching. But he senses that, and that's something that has been built into him or her over time. And it can be a bad thing. You got to have balance in that. Like I said earlier, you can't go to a family reunion and put your back up against the wall because you think Uncle Joe's going to take your wallet or something. You know?
See, I look at that a little bit differently. I don't, and I'm very familiar with the term hypervigilance and how a lot of people perceive that as being bad.
Yeah.
I don't see it that way at all. And I don't even think about it because one of the other things I do, I've been doing concealed carry classes for about 9 years now. And obviously we talk a lot about situational awareness, and DOC is a crash course at situational awareness.
Yeah, you bet.
When you're an 18-year-old kid running Menard East House 2 Gallery by yourself,
Right.
that's an eye-opener.
Yeah.
But after doing it for so long, it's automatic and I don't even think about it. So
Well, that's kind of the point of the hypervigilance.
It clicks.
yeah.
You look at the area of the brain and the limbic system, particularly with the amygdala that kind of controls fear. We see, especially in PTSD, that hippocampus right next to it, those things can be overactive, right? So you are perceiving your sensitivity to fear is through the roof. You know, your average person is down here.
Right.
So that's why you're scanning and looking for every little shortcut piece. And that is a really good thing, but we adapt to those environments really easily. We don't adapt really well back to kind of mundane, benign
Normal
environments.
society.
So it's healthy so long as it's not, and this is my opinion as a psychologist, so long as it's not impairing other areas of your life.
Your
Right? You're
relationships.
still able to have
Right.
relationships, go to work, you're not abusing substances, you're doing other healthy habits, your financials, then it's healthy.
And
But
like
it's a razor's edge though.
Right, it is, and there's a balance there. There has to be a balance. Like Howie was saying, it's automatically there. My 7-year-old, I got an 11-year-old girl that thinks she's 20 years old. I mean, she really does. Situational awareness. I actually try to put that on them when we're at Walmart. When we're walking through Walmart.
I know what our place, that place freaks me out.
Yeah.
And they walk in front of somebody. Hey, you got to be aware of your surroundings at all times. That person was coming. You didn't check your peripheral vision. Not trying to make them scared, but in today's society, making them aware constantly. Hey, when I'm in a strange environment, what is going on around me? I need to be aware of what's going on around me. You know, and not putting a scare tactic, but just making sure they understand the basics of situational awareness, like how it said. Yeah.
So you guys have kind of talked about your relationships with people around you. How has corrections as a newer employee, right? As a young cat coming into this fun world of corrections, what advice would you give to the new COTs when it comes to preparing for starting the
Because
job?
we're going to be there in a week
Yeah.
or two for,
Yeah.
I think, the second class at Decatur. So
Yes.
Number one, relax. Number two, and I used to tell them this when I would do orientation with new hires, and I was still doing the union thing. For the first 2 or 3 months, keep your eyes and ears open and your mouth shut. And you'll figure out pretty quick who you can latch onto as your mentor or mentors versus who you want to try to stay away from. I don't think that's a hard gig to master for the new people. And I suppose the other one I would tell them is don't let your identity become your job title, because you're still a lot more other things than a correctional
That's
officer
so
or
important too.
whatever.
Yeah.
Don't let your
Your
identity
position
become
is.
your job and title. Like some of us just get lost in I'm a correctional officer, I'm a correctional, I'm law enforcement, and then it just affects the relationships around them because they have that tunnel vision.
Well, in America, that's kind of the thing. The first question you ask somebody, a stranger at a party, or say if somebody brings a new person to a family party, what do you ask them? What do you do for a living?
Professional babysitting.
Yeah. Well, it's an ego-based thing. I mean, it really is. It's whether you're an athlete, you're a correctional officer, you're a cop, a Walmart employee. And again, like how I said, we're so much more than that. But a lot of people don't take that next step to get aware of what they are, what's going on around them. I mean, you could take away the job, you could take away the family, you could take away a left arm, a left leg. You know what? You're still there. You're still you. But finding that inner awareness and I don't get too deep, but that spirituality and just figuring out, hey man, there's a higher power than I am, whether you believe in God or you don't. You know, there's a higher power than me, and kind of getting off topic, and I apologize, but just finding that self-awareness. Hey, what's going on within me? Why am I feeling that way? Why am I pissed off at this inmate because he just threw his ID at me when I asked
And
for
my
his
guess
ID?
is you probably always had that self-awareness. You just quieted that voice down.
It's always there.
Right? Like, hey,
Yeah.
why are you doing this? Why are you
Right.
Why are you calling in today? Why are you running around? Why whatever the bad habit is, but you started listening to
Right.
it and
We had a
listening to it
portal.
earlier.
No, we had a portal right here, and we all stepped into it, kind of like Star Trek. You know, I saw your Star Wars linear.
Star Wars.
I love it.
Don't
I saw
confuse
it.
the deal.
So now you're bringing up Star Wars.
I saw it in 1977 at the drive-in.
Don't rub it in.
Yeah, I was
I'm
7
already
years
jealous.
old.
He wasn't done thought
Hey,
yet.
no. Yeah, I'm not a trick either. Anyway, we go in a portal and we go to Times Square, New York. You know, where the psychologist was, you know how much stuff Luke could identify that we're going to see in people? We're going to see people walking around talking to themselves. And they're batshit crazy. But you know what? We're all talking to ourselves in our head. Some of us just don't verbalize it. But finding out that you're not that voice because you're aware of that voice, you can go a lot deeper with that. And what Howie said, it all begins with one thing. You got to relax. Don't be so uptight. Don't get that butt pucker up there, man. Do your job. Walk in. Find the people you trust, like Howie said, because you keep your mouth shut, your ears open, you don't know it all.
Yeah.
You know, the wisest man in the world says, I know nothing, because he's a sponge. He's there to learn.
Yeah.
And you continue that, man. You'll find the right people to latch on. I mean, I can tell.
What are some things to look for? So you're a new guy listening to our podcast. You've been at the facility a week, a month, a year, whatever. You're trying to find some of those good mentors, the guys that know what the heck they're doing, the guys that keep everybody safe, the ones that aren't toxic.
You're gonna see people that are problem starters, and then you're gonna see people that are problem solvers. And for me, when I hired in, you know, we had a bunch of transfers coming in and to initially staff the joint, and a lot of them were from max joints. And you saw how they interacted with the population, and it was low key. And that was back when the prisons were pretty wild and still run by the gangs and everything.
All you had was what was being
Yeah,
here.
they didn't get excited about an inmate that was pissed off about, you know, something missing out of the commissary bag. Hey, what do we got to do to fix this?
Right.
Instead of, and I watched it for years, people walk into situations that were, okay, there's something going on here that we need to deal with, and they automatically jack everybody up.
0 to 100, just like
Yep,
that.
and then there was no reason for it. And
It's really hard to think and get control and assess the situation when everybody's up here.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that Will Ferrell, was it Old School? Nobody freak out! Don't freak out! It's like telling somebody to calm down or not freak out Sounds right? But it's never helped anybody in the history of the world.
Right. When you're reacting as opposed to responding,
Yeah.
you know, if you take that second there and again become aware of what's going on and respond as opposed to react, stay out of that little program sometimes that we get in our head that, hey, the inmate's here, I need to go here. Okay, well, you know what? Like Howie said, those guys from Max to us, hey, what do we need to do about this, man? Do we need to run you back over to commissary, or do I need to call over there? Prove to me on your commissary list, and let's handle it. But the way you can latch on to those people is a lot, and Howie would probably agree with me, maybe not if you don't, that's cool, is the way they interact with the inmates.
Mhm.
That's it. The way they interact with inmates, you can really learn a lot from somebody that way. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and how you treat folks that are considered kind of the least advantaged, worst off, whatever, negative terms on that sin tells a lot about you, right?
Mm-hmm.
How you treat the guy that's in prison for whatever, grew up with life with whatever, right? Tells a lot about your character.
I always looked at it as, especially when I was a sergeant, I don't have to assert my authority over somebody to prove to them that I'm supposedly better than they are. To me, it was always a game. And I'd already won the game,
If you
no
chose
matter
not
what
to
the
play,
situation was, because I knew I was going home at the end of the day.
Right.
And those guys aren't. And to me, very rarely did I run into a situation where I really had to go 100 miles an hour. And I think I was blessed and lucky that early on, especially doing my 3-month gig as a COT in Menard, I learned really quick how to talk to people. And there's certain things you can say. And certain things you can't, but most of the time it's all about how you say it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, not what you say, it's how you say it.
Yeah.
Your energy that you give to that person. Yeah.
I watched a lot of people struggle. A lot of people trying to prove how tough they were or whatever, staff-wise. I don't care how tough you are.
Because a lot of times, Howie, didn't you see that maybe you'd be out for a beer or out somewhere and that guy you're working with as a CO has got his badge in his wallet?
Yeah.
I mean, the stories I could tell you about that. And I'll tell you a quick one if I can.
I see. Well, I see he's got we won't say the brand, but
the Clinton County soda.
That's like kind of South Central Illinois near St. Louis. That's one of the brands. When you see Centralia, Vandalia people, they're rocking that pop.
Yes.
Soda.
He said pop. Did you hear that?
I switched. I
Yeah,
lived in Chicago for a while,
right.
and if I say it, my wife looks at me funny. So I don't know what to say. I say soda. I say soda pop.
Well,
I just say soda.
Fizzy drink. I
if
don't
you're down south, like near Atlanta, those people from the south will say, hey, give me a Coke.
Everything's Coke. That's what my grandma was.
Yeah.
She gave you a Sprite. Well, that's not a Coke.
Well, yeah, exactly. Right.
Hey, before you get into your story, you were asking about what advice I would give new hires, and I had this in the back of my head and I forgot about it.
And it came back. All right.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time and a lot of years worrying about stuff that was completely out of my control. And it took me a long time to figure it out. Hey, just focus on the stuff that you are in control of, which in corrections isn't much. But it's already a negative environment. And it's real easy to jump on that negative bandwagon. Oh, this job sucks, this warden sucks, whatever.
And it carries you away.
You got zero control over that. What do you have control over? And the biggest ones is how you react to all the changes that are going on.
That's like the basic lesson in existentialism, right there. It's you have the environment, but you have how you react to it, and that's the thing you always have control over.
Yeah, and I would hope the newbies in the academy now, man, I hope you guys are shoving that down their throat, because I watched a lot of people self-destruct over the years because they just couldn't figure that out. They were so focused on the negative stuff, they never even thought about looking for the positives. And no matter what the situation is, there's always a positive in it if you look hard.
And Howie, wouldn't you agree that the way you analyze that and look at it, especially as we look back now, is a lot of people would take things personal.
Oh, yeah.
Well, like when you were a sergeant, you'd say, hey, CO, go get this line for me. That bum, I'm watching my language here.
It's
Right.
so
That bum is making me go get this line. He's got 2 other COs standing right behind him. He didn't mean anything by it. It's not personal. But not taking things personal.
Especially when they're intended to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, especially from inmates, because
Yes.
I mean they're going to test you and poke you and try to jam you up every chance they get.
And
they got
there's
24
that.
hours a day to think about that.
Absolutely.
Don't fall into that trap. Like I said before, you've already won because you're going home. They're not.
And that's one thing you say that you can rely upon and sit on. I mean, if you're in the middle of a disagreement with an inmate or maybe another staff member, because that happens quite frequently as well. You know what? The good thing about this, I'm getting paid. I'm going home. So this is a learning situation. This isn't a problem. Good. Let's do like Jocko Willink said in that video. Good. Okay, we don't have the guns, we need to go on this mission. Good. Okay, this guy just shot me in the leg. Good. Move on from that point because you
Is he the guy that says embrace the suck?
Yeah.
I love that.
Him and David Goggins.
Yeah,
But,
Goggins is something else.
Jocko Willink is amazing. There's a video I'll show you before I leave today. It's 2 minutes long. It's just titled Good, and it's just incredible because regardless of what situation is in front of you, like Luke said, it's how you respond to it. You know, if we can get to that point to respond instead of reacting to it, it can make a big difference and not taking things personal. You know, the governor or director comes down with an initiative, hey, you got to do this, this, and this. What's it going to do to get pissed off? Who cares?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, really, that's out of our, like I would say, that's out of our control. What is in our control? The situation in front of us and how we're going to respond.
It's like spinning your wheels on ice. You are not going to go anywhere with it.
But people can get
You're going to waste a lot of gas and hurt your tires. But
that can carry them away emotionally for years, not just days, months, and weeks. They can carry them away for years. And it really can.
And that's stuff they don't have control over. So
Right.
to Howie's point.
So you said you had a story, Chico?
Yeah, real quick one here. Back in my drinking days, this was probably back in like 2000.
You know it's going to be a good one.
And I was actually the well-behaved guy in this situation, but I won't say his name.
You notice how we all take a drink.
Yeah, he's,
And this is coffee, just
Just
so
ice
you
water.
know.
Ice water.
he's a sergeant at Southwestern now, and he was my roommate, one of my best friends in the world. Still keep in contact with him. He's approaching retirement. Black guy that can sing country music karaoke better than any white guy I've ever seen in my life. Heavy metal karaoke. I mean, you get this guy to do that. He's just amazing. I just love him like a
I'm sure
brother.
that would shock a few people at a bar.
Yeah, no,
Small
the
town.
guy is absolutely
Not
incredible.
respect, yeah.
And again, it's hard not to say his name, but I'm not going to. He was in my weddings, several weddings. We'll get into that. But anyway, so we would every Thursday night. We were on 3-11 shift at Van Day. We lived in Edwardsville. We take off 2 hours comp time at 9. We'd grab a 12-pack. Drive from now. This isn't. Don't do this.
He's not condoning.
Not condoning it, right?
He shares this
Not
part of his
condoning.
life,
Right.
and Chico has done this forever. Because we can get into all the negative stuff, and he shared that.
Right. But then there's a positive one. There's a learning experience that's going to come out of this. It really is. So we drive back to Edwardsville. We change clothes and we hit the bars because it was dollar bottle night back in the day. Well, this one bar, it was right before Edwardsville. I can't remember the town, but that's irrelevant. Well, on Thursday night, dollar bottle DJs. We go in there and we're drinking, having a good time. It's one of those bars that's so crowded you can't hardly walk. I mean, we're bumping into each other. Okay.
Yeah, you can't go in there after your mid-20s. It's just
Right,
you
no,
get
that's-
old, you don't like that.
And at the time, I think I was 30. So you have bikers in there. I'm talking big, scary white guys with a beard like yours,
Yeah.
with the vests on, the whole 9 yards, and a change. Man, that's kind of scary. Had gangbangers in there from Edwardsville, from Glen Carbon, with pants sagging, the whole 9 yards. And then you also got college kids in there, yuppies. They're just trying to hook up and do their thing.
I think this is a Cody Jinks song.
Yeah, great. It sounds like some kind of
Cowboys
song.
and the
doesn't it?
hippies.
So this fight breaks out on the dance floor, and me and my buddy, one of my best friends in the world, are standing there. And next thing I know, I'm just staying back. I don't want no part of it. He whips out his wallet and says, "I'm a correction officer. You need to stop." What in the world are you doing? So I push him away, and this big biker gets up and says, "What did you say to me?" And he didn't say nothing, and I took him out of there. The biggest thing is, man, don't take that stuff with you when you get out of there. That could have turned into a very bad situation. Do take pride in your job, which a lot of times is very difficult. But don't get involved in stuff that you got no business getting involved in, and using that badge because somebody will take that, turn it sideways, and shove it up where the sun don't shine.
Yeah.
It's a very dangerous situation. Take pride in your job, but understand the limitations of your job.
Well, and on a similar note, I know you've taught and taken numerous martial arts, self-defense, kickboxing, MMA types of stuff, and I know you teach conceal and carry, self-defense, those kind of tactics. What's one of the first things you learn?
Avoid the situation.
Yeah,
The easiest way to win a fight is not having it in the first place.
Absolutely.
And it's
Which
the
is
same.
why I don't go to bars.
And it's just, and I haven't been drunk in probably 10 years. I've had maybe one beer since I retired. I think I had a sip of it, and I was in Super
That's great.
Bowl
That's
last
great to
month.
hear.
But I don't even crave it anymore, which we don't get into all that. But and that's the same thing at the prison. Like I always said, dealing with an inmate, when you realize you've already won, but you're going home, you can deal with it on a different level. They're not going to take anything from you, and you don't have to take anything from them. You just do your job as a professional, but keep in mind, I get to go home. We don't have to heighten this situation. We really don't. Now, sometimes it does get to a point where the inmate's out of control. Maybe he's got some issues going on upstairs. And that's why you got a radio. That's why we got communication. That's why we have people to help, defuse the situation so everybody goes home safe.
Good point.